How to grow 6 months of fresh food in your small backyard. 6 months of fresh food from your small backyard. No greenhouse, no expensive setup, no agricultural degree. And before you say your space is too small, the system I'm about to show you works in a backyard the size of a single parking space. Here's what nobody in the gardening world is talking about. Most small backyard growers are producing food for 8 to 10 weeks out of the year and calling it a garden. The growers producing food for 6 full months from the same amount of space aren't working harder. They're working with a completely different system. Today, I'm giving you that system, step by step, season by season. Stay with me through part 6 because the cold extension technique in that section alone will add 6 to 8 weeks of fresh food production to your backyard that most gardeners simply leave on the table every single year. Part 1. Why most small backyard gardens only produce for 2 months. Let's name the problem directly. If you've ever grown a small backyard garden, you know the cycle. You plant in spring. Everything comes in around the same time in early summer. You eat more zucchini than you ever wanted. Then the heat arrives, things slow down or bolt, and by late summer, your garden looks tired and abandoned. You get maybe 8 to 10 weeks of real production. Then it's over. And every year, that pattern repeats. Here's what's actually happening. And it's not your fault because almost no one teaches this clearly. That cycle is the result of single-season thinking applied to a multi-season space. You're treating a 6-month growing window like it's a single event. Plant once, harvest once, done. The growers who produce food for 6 continuous months think about their backyard completely differently. They see the year divided into 3 distinct growing seasons, not one. Early season, main season, late and extended season. And they have a plan, a specific crop-matched plan for each one. When all 3 seasons are running with intention, the gaps disappear. The feast and famine cycle ends. And the same small backyard that used to give you 10 weeks of food starts producing across 24 to 26 continuous weeks. That's the shift. That's what this entire video is built around. Here's what we're covering today. How to map your backyard for maximum seasonal output. The exact crops for each of the 3 seasons. The succession and rotation system that keeps beds full and producing. The soil building protocol that makes your backyard more productive every year. The cold extension techniques that steal extra weeks from both ends of the calendar. And the one planning tool that ties everything together into a working system. Every section delivers. Let's move. Part 2. Mapping your small backyard for maximum seasonal output. Before you plant a single seed this season, you need to do something most backyard gardeners skip entirely. You need to map your space. Not just measure it, but truly understand it as a production system. Here's exactly how to do that. Step 1. The sun audit. Spend 1 full day in your backyard with a notebook. At 8 a.m., note where the sun is hitting and where it isn't. Do the same at noon. Do it again at 4 p.m. What you're creating is a real-time light map, and it will show you things about your space that surprise you. Most small backyards have at least 2 distinct light zones. A high production zone, direct sun for 6 or more hours. This zone is where your fruiting crops live. Tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, squash, beans. These are calorie crops, your highest value, highest yield plants. They go in your best light always. A secondary zone, 3 to 5 hours of sun, with shade from a fence, wall, or structure for part of the day. This zone is your cool crop zone, and it's more valuable than most people realize. Lettuce, spinach, kale, chard, brassicas. These crops don't just tolerate partial shade, they prefer it once temperatures rise. Your secondary zone extends your cool crop season by weeks because it stays cooler longer. And often, backyards have a third zone, under trees, along north-facing walls, deep in corners. deeply shaded. Less than 3 hours of direct light. Most people write this zone off. Don't. Mint, chives, parsley, cilantro, and even some radishes produce in surprisingly low light. Don't leave any zone unplanted. Step 2. The soil baseline. Before you invest time and money in a season of growing, do a simple soil pH test. A basic pH test kit costs almost nothing at any garden center. Most vegetables perform best between pH 6.0 and 7.0. If your pH is outside that range, too acidic or too alkaline, even perfect plants in perfect conditions will underperform because they can't absorb nutrients properly. Lime raises pH, sulfur lowers it. Simple, inexpensive, and one of the highest return fixes in backyard gardening, almost never discussed in beginner content. Step 3. Measure your actual growing footprint. Take your total usable growing area and divide it into 3 sections in your mind. 1/3 for your main season crops, the big producers that anchor your summer output. 1/3 for your early and late season crops, the fast maturing plants that fill the calendar before and after summer. 1/3 as your rotation reserve, always resting, always being amended, always ready for the next planting. This 3-section rotation prevents soil depletion, breaks pest and disease cycles, and ensures you always have a freshly prepared bed ready to receive the next succession. This is the structural foundation. Everything else builds on top of it. Part 3. The 3-season system, your year-round production framework. Here's the core of the entire 6-month system. Your small backyard has 3 growing seasons, not 1. Most gardeners use 1. High-output growers use all 3. Let me walk you through each one, with specific crops, specific timing, and specific transitions. Season 1. Early season, weeks 1 through 8. Early season starts the moment your soil can be worked, typically 6 to 8 weeks before your last expected frost date. The crops that go in during early season are cold-hardy, fast-maturing, and specifically selected to produce a full harvest before your summer crops need the space. Your early season crops, peas, spinach, lettuce, arugula, radishes, turnips, kale, Swiss chard, Asian greens, and green onions. These crops don't just tolerate cold, they prefer it. Spinach and kale are frost-hardy down to the mid-20s Fahrenheit. Peas germinate in soil as cold as 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Getting them in the ground in early spring means they're producing before most gardeners have even started thinking about their garden. And here's the transition strategy that makes early season irreplaceable. Your early season crops will naturally finish, bolt, mature, or slow down right around the time your last frost passes and conditions are right for summer transplants. You don't create a gap, you create a handoff. Pull the bolted lettuce, transplant your tomato. Same ged, same day. Season 2, main season, weeks 9 through 22. This is the warm season core that most gardeners already know. Tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, zucchini, summer squash, pole beans, basil, eggplant. Your main season runs from your last frost date through the peak of summer. What makes the main season work in a small backyard is selectivity. You don't have room for every crop you want, so you choose based on 2 criteria: yield per square foot and continuous harvest potential. Indeterminate tomatoes produce all season long. Zucchini produces so aggressively that 2 plants will supply a family. Pole beans produce continuously for 8 to 10 weeks if you keep harvesting. Cucumbers are relentless producers once they hit their stride. These are your anchors. They fill the main season and dominate your production numbers. Season 3, late and extended season, weeks 23 through 26 and beyond. This is the season most backyard gardeners miss entirely, and it's where 6 to 8 free weeks of additional production live. Late season starts in late summer, when you begin transitioning your spent main season crops out and planting your cold, hardy fall producers in. Your late season crops, fall kale, collard greens, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower, spinach, arugula, mash, winter lettuce varieties, garlic planted for spring harvest, and leeks. Many of these crops actually improve with frost. Kale gets sweeter, Brussels sprouts tighten and sweeten, spinach intensifies in flavor. Cold doesn't end your garden. In many ways, it improves it. The extension techniques in Part 6 push this season even further, into territory most small backyards have never reached before. But first, the succession system that keeps all 3 seasons running simultaneously.
Part 4. The succession planting system that ends empty beds forever. An empty bed is a failed opportunity. In a small backyard operating a 6-month production system, an empty bed isn't just wasted potential, it actively degrades your soil and disrupts the biological momentum you've been building. Succession planting is the discipline that keeps beds full, productive, and biologically active across the entire 6-month window. Here's how to implement it specifically. The rolling harvest model. Instead of planting your entire stock of any given crop at once, stagger it. Divide whatever you're planting into 3 equal groups. Plant the first group at the beginning of the planting window, plant the second group 14 days later, plant the third group 14 days after that. Result: instead of a single 2-week harvest window, you have a 6-week harvest window from the same crop, with continuous daily picking instead of a single overwhelm event. This works for almost every short-cycle crop: lettuce, radishes, spinach, arugula, cilantro, beans, beets, and green onions. The replacement calendar. For each major bed in your backyard, build a replacement calendar before the season starts. Write down what goes in the bed first, write down exactly what replaces it when it's done, write down what comes after that. A strong 3-stage bed sequence. Stage 1, early season spinach and radishes, harvest complete by late spring. Stage 2, a single indeterminate cherry tomato, trained vertically, harvests through summer. Stage 3, fall kale and arugula transplanted alongside the tomato in early August, established under the tomato's canopy before the tomato is removed. By the time the tomato is spent in early fall, the kale and arugula underneath it are already 4 to 6 weeks established and ready to carry you through autumn. That bed produces food for 7 months straight without a single idle week. The transplanting timing rule. Your replacements should be started either from seed indoors or in a nursery pot 4 to 6 weeks before the bed they're destined for becomes available. The moment a bed clears, a mature transplant goes in, not a seed that takes 3 to 4 weeks just to germinate and establish. Every week you wait to fill a bed is a week of production you never get back. Start your replacements before you need them. Have them ready. Fill immediately.
Part 5. The soil management protocol that makes your backyard more productive every year. Here's a truth that almost no gardening content addresses directly. A small backyard garden that depletes its soil every year is not a 6-month food system. It's a 6-month mining operation. You're extracting from a finite resource without replacing it, and every season the yields quietly decline even if you can't see why. The growers who produce serious food from small spaces for years and decades are doing something fundamentally different. They're feeding their soil as deliberately as they're feeding their plants. Here's the complete protocol. The seasonal soil reset. Between every major crop transition, and at minimum twice per year, work the following amendments into your beds. 2 to 3 inches of finished compost worked into the top 6 inches of soil. This is non-negotiable. Compost is your primary soil builder. It feeds soil biology, improves drainage in clay soils, improves moisture retention in sandy soils, and slowly releases nutrients across the entire growing season. A light application of balanced granular organic fertilizer worked into the bed at planting time. This bridges the gap between what your compost provides and what your crops immediately need. 1 handful of worm castings per square foot, top-dressed and watered in. Worm castings are one of the most biologically rich soil amendments available. A small amount goes a long way. The cover crop rotation. Every bed in your backyard should spend at least 4 to 6 weeks per year planted in a cover crop. This sounds counterproductive. You're not producing food during that window, but you are producing soil. Cover crops, winter rye, buckwheat, crimson clover, or mustard do 4 things simultaneously that no fertilizer can replicate. They suppress weeds, they add organic matter when cut and left on the surface, their root systems aerate compacted soil mechanically, and leguminous cover crops like clover and vetch fix atmospheric nitrogen directly into your soil for free. A bed that gets a 6-week cover crop rotation between its main and late season crops will outperform a bed that's continuously cropped within 2 to 3 seasons. The mulch layer, the tool most small backyard growers underuse. A 2 to 3 inch layer of organic mulch, straw, wood chips, dried leaves, or shredded paper applied over your bed surface after planting does 4 things. It keeps soil temperature stable, preventing the wild swings that stress root systems. It retains moisture, reducing watering frequency by 30 to 50%. It suppresses weeds, reducing the competition your plants face for water and nutrients. And as it breaks down, it feeds your soil biology continuously. Mulch is free or almost free. It takes 10 minutes to apply, and it delivers compounding benefits across the entire season. The growers who use it see the difference immediately. The ones who don't are making their gardens harder to manage than they need to be. The no-dig commitment. Deep tilling, turning soil with a fork or tiller to a depth of 12 or more inches, is one of the most widely practiced and most soil-destructive habits in backyard gardening. Tilling destroys the fungal networks that connect your soil biology. It brings weed seeds from deep layers to the surface where they germinate explosively. And it accelerates the breakdown of organic matter, depleting the carbon that feeds soil life. The no-dig approach, adding amendments on the surface and letting soil biology incorporate them downward, preserves structure, encourages deeper root penetration, and produces measurably better yields within 2 to 3 seasons compared to tilled beds of the same starting quality. Loosen compacted areas with a broad fork, a tool that aerates without inverting. Add on top, let nature work downward. Your soil will be noticeably more productive by year 2 and exceptional by year 3.
Part 6. Cold extension, the technique that steals 8 extra weeks of production. This is the section I promised you at the beginning. This is where the 6-month system crosses from ambitious to genuinely achievable for almost anyone in almost any climate. Cold extension is the practice of protecting your plants from temperatures that would otherwise end your growing season, and it's dramatically simpler and cheaper than most gardeners assume. Here's the full toolkit. Row cover, your most versatile cold extension tool. Row cover is a lightweight, breathable agricultural fabric that you lay directly over your plants or suspend on simple wire hoops above them. It works by trapping heat radiating from the soil at night, creating a microclimate under the fabric that stays 4 to 8 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than the open air. That 4 to 8 degree buffer is the difference between a killing frost and a survivable night for most cool season crops. Row cover extends your spring planting window 3 to 4 weeks earlier.
It extends your fall harvest window 3 to 4 weeks later. Combined, that's 6 to 8 weeks of additional production from a product that costs under $20 for a backyard-sized roll and lasts 3 to 5 seasons with basic care. Here's what most tutorials don't tell you. Row cover on cool season crops in summer, particularly over partially shaded beds, also extends their harvest into heat by buffering temperature spikes and reducing direct sun intensity on bolt-sensitive plants. Spring and summer and fall. One tool, multiple applications. Cold frames, the low-cost season extender most backyards are missing. A cold frame is essentially a bottomless box with a transparent lid, glass, polycarbonate, or even heavy clear plastic sheeting stretched over a simple frame. It sits directly over your bed and creates a mini greenhouse effect. In a cold frame, lettuce and spinach will grow through temperatures down to the mid-teens Fahrenheit, pushing well past the first hard frosts of autumn. In mild climates, a cold frame can extend leafy green production through the entire winter. Building a basic cold frame requires nothing more than scrap lumber for the walls and an old storm window or a piece of polycarbonate sheet for the lid. The total cost for a DIY cold frame covering a 4 by 4 foot bed? Under $15. The additional production time it buys? 4 to 8 weeks per year, every year. The thermal mass trick, and almost nobody teaches this. Thermal mass is any material that absorbs heat during the day and releases it slowly at night, moderating temperature swings. In a small backyard, you can apply thermal mass principles to your cold frame or row cover setup with a simple addition. Line the inside walls of your cold frame with gallon-sized dark-colored water jugs or bottles. Fill them with water. Cap them tightly. During the day, these bottles absorb solar heat. At night, they release that stored heat slowly into the enclosed airspace around your plants, maintaining warmer temperatures several hours longer than an empty cold frame would. In practical terms, this extends your cold frame's effective protection range by another 3 to 5 degrees Fahrenheit, meaningfully expanding the range of crops you can protect and the depth of cold you can grow through. Start extension, warming soil for earlier spring planting. Cold extension works at both ends of the calendar. In late winter, before soil temperatures have reached the 50-degree Fahrenheit threshold most vegetables need for germination, lay clear plastic sheeting directly on your beds for 2 to 3 weeks. Clear plastic greenhouses your soil, trapping solar heat and raising soil temperature 10 to 15 degrees Fahrenheit faster than bare ground. Once soil temperature is in range, remove the plastic, add your amendment, and plant. This technique can move your spring planting window forward by 3 to 4 weeks, especially in zones 5 and 6, where late winters keep soil cold well into spring. Combined with fall row cover extension at the other end of the calendar, you can realistically add 6 to 8 weeks of total production time to your small backyard without a single permanent structure. That is the difference between a 10-week garden and a 6-month garden.
Part 7. The exact crop list that covers all 6 months. Let me give you the complete seasonal crop map, specific varieties, specific timing, and the performance characteristics that make each one earn its place in the system. Early season crops. Plant 6 to 8 weeks before last frost. Spinach, Bloomsdale Long-Standing, is your best variety for early season, extremely cold tolerant, fast to germinate in cold soil. Harvest outer leaves continuously from 40 days onward. Sugar snap peas, direct sow as soon as soil can be worked. They climb, so they use vertical space instead of horizontal. Sweet, prolific, and done before summer heat arrives. Easter egg radishes, harvest in 25 days. Perfect succession gap crop that fills space between other plantings and produces quickly. Butter crunch or winter density lettuce. Both hold up to cold better than loose leaf varieties and resist bolting longer than most spring lettuces. Hakuri turnips, one of the most underrated early season crops in small backyards. Sweet, mild, fast maturing at 38 days, and both the roots and greens are edible. Main season crops, plant at or after last frost. Sun Gold Cherry Tomato, the highest producing, most consistently yielding cherry tomato variety available. Indeterminate, trained to a single stem, produces continuously from midsummer until first hard frost. Shishito Pepper, lighter-skinned, earlier to produce than most peppers. Harvest continuously once plants begin producing in early summer. Marketmore Cucumber, reliable, disease-resistant, and a continuous producer once established. 1 to 2 plants per family. Rattlesnake Pole Beans, exceptionally productive, heat-tolerant, and one of the most distinctive-looking beans you can grow. Harvest every 3 to 4 days to keep production going. Late season crops, transplant in late summer for fall harvest. Red Russian Kale, one of the most cold-tolerant leafy greens available, survives hard frosts, gets sweeter after cold exposure. Harvests continuously through late autumn. Napoli Carrots, a fast-maturing carrot variety that goes from seed to harvest in 58 days. Sown in late summer, harvested before the ground freezes. Broccoli Rabe, faster to harvest than heading broccoli, matures in 40 to 50 days, extremely cold-tolerant, and perfect for late-season gaps. Garlic, planted in fall for summer harvest the following year, takes no active space during winter. One of the highest return on investment crops in a small backyard. Mosh, also called corn salad, one of the most cold-tolerant salad greens that exists, grows through temperatures well below freezing, the ultimate late-season extension crop. That list, planted and transitioned according to the 3-season system, produces something edible from your backyard from late winter all the way through late fall or beyond, depending on your climate and how aggressively you implement the cold extension techniques.
Part 8. The one planning tool that ties the entire system together. Everything we've covered today is powerful in isolation, but the difference between a gardener who tries these techniques once and a gardener who runs a genuine 6-month food system is a plan. A specific, written, bed-by-bed plan that lives somewhere you'll actually look at it. Here's how to build yours, and it takes under an hour. Step 1. Draw your backyard beds. Simple boxes on paper. Label each one by its light zone: high sun, partial shade, deep shade. Step 2. Assign each bed its 3-season sequence. For every bed, write down what goes in first, what replaces it, and what comes after that. Match the crop to the light zone. High sun beds get your fruit and crops in the main season. Partial shade beds carry your cool crops through spring and into fall. Step 3. Create a sowing calendar. Work backwards from your last frost date and your first fall frost date. For each crop in your plan, calculate when seeds need to be started, either indoors or direct in the ground, to be ready for their planned bed on time. Write those start dates into a calendar. Use your phone, a notebook, a whiteboard in your garage, whatever you'll actually look at. Step 4. Schedule your amendments. Alongside your sowing calendar, block in your compost top dressings, your cover crop windows, and your cold frame setup dates. These are not optional additions. They are the infrastructure that makes the system work year after year. When all 4 steps are complete, you have something that almost no backyard gardener has ever built for themselves. A complete, season-by-season, bed-by-bed production plan that runs from the first thaw to the last harvest, continuously, without guessing, without gaps, and without losing weeks of production to poor timing. That plan is the system. That plan is what makes 6 months possible. And here's what you'll notice by year 2. The plan gets easier. The soil gets better. The yields get bigger. Because this isn't a one-season trick. It's a compounding system. Every good season makes the next season more productive if you're building your soil, rotating correctly, and staying ahead of your succession schedule. Year 1, you're learning the system. Year 2, you're running the system. Year 3, you're producing more food from the same small backyard than you ever imagined possible. Let's bring it all together. Map your space and honor your light zones. Run all 3 seasons, early, main, and late, with specific crops for each. Use succession planting to end empty beds permanently. Build your soil as seriously as you build your harvests. Extend your season at both ends with row cover, cold frames, and thermal mass. And plant it all on paper, bed by bed, week by week, before the season starts. That is the 6-month system. That is how a small backyard stops being a 10-week vegetable patch and becomes a genuine food production system. If this video gave you a framework you've never seen laid out this clearly before, hit that like button. That single action helps this content reach every small backyard grower who's been searching for exactly this. Subscribe. Every video on this channel is built with this level of depth and this level of intent. No fluff, no filler, just what works. Drop your location in the comments below. Tell me which zone you're in and which season you're entering right now. I want to know where in the world this system is going to work for you. Until next time, keep growing.